Hey there, this is the third and final part of this little series within a series. Go listen to the other two if you haven't yet, but to recap, I'm listing my favorite solo original songs for each and every Vocaloid out there. I've already done 2/3 of them, but there are still some big names left to get through, so let's get right to it. Because this is the last part, let's start things off with a bang. Shanti by Wotaku is my pick for Kaito, and I don't think I need to tell most of you how much it slaps. The flute melody and that bombastic low brass sound are the elements that stood out to me the most when I first heard this song. But what I've really come to love are all the different string sounds. The little electric guitar licks, that twangy sitar in the really fast rap section, and what sounds like a shamisen tucked way into the back of the mix in certain parts. Shanti is also one of the most well-known songs on my list, and Kaito's most viewed song, and deservedly so. 2026 marks Kaito's 20th anniversary, so I've got my fingers crossed that we'll finally see Shanti live in one of Krypton's concerts. I mean, I don't know if I should let my hopes get too high, since Krypton has never shown Kaito that much live show love, but I'm hopeful nonetheless. If nothing else, the singer Gero has performed his cover of Shanti in concert, and it absolutely kicks ass, so Krypton should take a hint. Another most viewed song to make my list is 40m P's Warning with Gallico. 40m P never misses, but this one stands out as one of my favorites from his discography as well as my favorite use of Gallico. The fast guitars lend the song exactly the sense of urgency needed to match lyrics about charging forth into the future, while the violins impart a bit of romanticism to balance out that ferocity. I also think that Gallico was just a really smart choice of singer, when it would have been very easy for 40m P to stick to his usual standbys of Miku or Gumi. Like those two, Gallico definitely has a youthfulness to her voice, but there is a hint of maturity to her tone as well, of confidence more than cuteness. It's well suited to a song about refusing to take the easy path in life. I think I mentioned in the other episodes that I can feel like a bit of a basic bitch for picking a Vocaloid's most popular song as my favorite, but the other thing that kind of makes me feel like that is when my favorite song is a demo for the voice bank. Even so, there's no reason to pretend that I don't adore these songs. For Cyber Songman, I've got Rinse Repeat, his demo song by Crusher and The Living Tombstone. I remember being so excited when this voice bank was announced. Cyber Songman still stands out to me as a pretty unique voice among all of the options that we've got these days. And though I don't use Vocaloid as much as I used to, he was always one of my favorite voice banks to work with. And admittedly, this is a very weird thing to have such a strong opinion on. I love Cyber Songman's H phoneme. Some of the other English voice banks out there like Dinah get really weird and choppy with the H, but Simon's is perfectly smooth and breathy. And, thanks in part to the clever repetition in the lyrics, you can hear a lot of the nuances of his pronunciation curves really well in Rinse Repeat. My other favorite element is the slightly distorted vocal chop sample that you hear a few times. I can sometimes find vocal chop to be a bit overbearing, but it's really well used here to lend to the sense of being stuck in a cycle. Rinse and repeat. My next demo song choice is In Your Breath with Yuezheng Longya. The song was written by Suyi, with lyrics by He Xiangyi, but the tuning was done by Moving Point, who wrote my choice for Jiyomoke, and he made Longya sound absolutely fantastic. In Your Breath is a hard rock / melodic metal track, with heartfelt but also very meta lyrics about Longya's relationship with his listeners. Longya had a somewhat unusual and rather lengthy development from concept to Vocaloid. His design was created by a fan through a contest, and even when V-Singer adopted the design and announced him as an upcoming Vocaloid, they still took another 2 years to conduct market research and gather fan support, even taking suggestions during the selection process for his voice provider. Thus, when In Your Breath came out in June of 2017, and Longya sang about how grateful he was to finally join his fans, it was both a demonstration of what the voice bank was capable of, and what Vocaloid fans could do when they threw their support behind a project. Elaborate backstory aside, it's also just a really well-composed song. It's one of the many on my favorites list that sounds like it could be the opening for some action-packed anime series. And the overall sound reminds me a lot of Yoyoyopei's work. Which brings me to the last of my demo picks, Line, which Yoyoyopei wrote for Mew. This is a song very much in the tradition of Leia and Palette, with these delicate, skittering piano lines weaving in and out of heavy drum hits and guitar riffs. The overall tone feels very similar as well. So much of Yoyoyopei's work has this heavy atmosphere of loneliness and loss to it, both in terms of the emotions conveyed by the music and the themes explored in the lyrics. Line was Mew's debut, but per the translation on the lyrics wiki, she seems to be singing from the point of view of some sort of ghost, existing outside of normal reality and clinging to the memories of a lost love. Cheerful stuff. Making this list has lent me a better appreciation for melodic metalcore and songs influenced by the genre, since a lot of the new songs that I found and liked have fallen under that umbrella. Among these is my pick for Sachiko, Scream by Richiri. I think this one has a slightly brighter J-rock style sound to the guitars than like a pure metalcore song, but the metal influences are clear in Sachiko's vocals especially. Sachiko was of course recorded to specialize in enka singing, but much like Western-style opera, you can get a lot of mileage out of combining the traditional sound with crunchy guitars and a walloping kick drum. Sachiko also has the advantage of being a Vocaloid 4 voice bank, meaning she has the growl feature built right in. Reichiri takes full advantage of that factor and Sachiko's more mature timbre to get some truly wrenching lines out of her. True to the name of the song, Sachiko does, in fact, do a fair bit of screaming. Sachiko stands out as a lower-ranged female singer in a field that trends towards cute little squeaks, but she's not the only one, of course. Nakamura Iroha has a gorgeously rich voice with a huge range, and my favorite song with her is Hanabi, or Fireworks, by Luna. Like 40 P, Luna has very rarely produced a song that's anything short of excellent. As I type this script, we're in a pretty intense winter deep freeze where I live, but Hanabi sounds like summertime. And not just because that's when you're most likely to see fireworks. Luna's guitar tone is as bright as ever, and Iroha's voice is warm and hopeful from the lowest point of the verse to the soaring high notes in the chorus. Luna also wrote 2 more of my favorite songs. For Rana, I've got Aimless Walker. Luna is a bit unusual among Vocaloid creators in that his music videos very often incorporate live-action footage. Aimless Walker is one such video. It's just a bunch of clips of various people's feet as they walk in all sorts of environments, but it's absolutely perfect for a song about pushing forward through the tough times and finding your own path. Rana's boisterous voice is exactly the right match for the optimistic build through the chorus and into the beat drop, while the octave harmonies underneath add some grounding gravitas. Her journey may be aimless, slow, and even painful, but she isn't walking alone. And for Kizuna Akari, I've got Luna's song Reunion. It's another favorite music video, with a simple animation of a schoolgirl and her puppy imposed over footage of a lonely gray beach, and a perfect encapsulation of the vibes of the song, of keeping happy memories and hopes to get you through the hard times. Akari's voice is bright and cheerful as she sings about separation from a friend, and she trusts that, in the end, she'll be able to smile and laugh again with the person she loves someday. Kizuna Akari is, of course, marketed as Yuzuki Yukari's younger sister. For Yukari, my pick is Balsam by Maruka Kurosawa. I heard a cover of the song before the original, Celia's rendition with Kai Yuki to be exact, which is actually more popular on YouTube than the original's official upload. And while Yuki's version is more straightforwardly sad-sounding, Yukari's has a unique hint of tension to it. Her voice is bright and rich, contrasting but not overpowering the delicacy of the instrumental. The song is in waltz time, arranged with spindly harpsichord notes and fairy-desc glockenspiel flourishes. Even when heavier notes peak underneath in the form of low strings or piano, we don't linger on the darkness for long before the song remembers the brave face that it's trying to put on. Yukari sings that she's not lonely, and you could never make her say so. She's aloof, independent, and proud of it. And if it really was bothering her, how could she admit to such a thing? She can bear the silence, but not an active rejection, or worse, pity. The Balsam says, "Don't touch me," in Floriography, and our hero feels safer projecting the same. If she cannot be happy alone, she won't allow herself to be sad either. And somehow, Balsam isn't even the only deeply melancholy waltz on my list. The other is Snow Globe City by Do Not Cross P, my choice for Miriam, who is by far my favorite V1. This song was done for the 13th anniversary collaborative album for Miriam, The Lady in the Silver Circle. It's also notable for being the longest track on this whole list at over 7 minutes long. Micah sings some chorus vocals here and there, but she almost blends into the instrumental, leaving all the focus on Miriam. Do Not Cross P talked in the description about how the song was inspired by the creative collaborator and video illustrator Control Kun's writing and world building. The inhabitants of Control Kun's domed and doomed city know that they are running out of time, and as Do Not Cross P put it, what started as a tribute to the silent anxiety of the inhabitants of a fictional world on its last breath became a reflection on my own anxiety about my own world. All these ideas would be captivating on their own, but crucially, the music also embodies all the emotions bound up in the story. With a simple repeating acoustic guitar riff as the foundation, harps and chimes and flutes and bowed strings all add their layers of melancholy. Miriam, already a relative relic in the Vocaloid world when this song came out 9 years ago, sings her lullaby to a dying world sounding as if she's on the verge of tears the whole time. Miriam is the oldest Vocaloid on this segment of the list, and the newest is Nurse Robot Type T. My choice for her is Feather Pecking Angel by Akita Remri. Appropriate for the nurse gimmick, the heart monitor marks the beat throughout the whole song. Nurse Robot sings as an angel who feels she's failed her protective purpose. She implores the listener not to preserve life or drag things out beyond their span, to let life be something ephemeral, and therefore all the more vivid and lovely. Through the chorus, as she pleads, Renri has given her a very strange, sort of fluttery, warbling tone, almost as if they very subtly applied a bit of ring modulator effect. It really enhances the impression of Nurse Robot as this desperate, broken thing, still trying to grasp for something beautiful. Nurse Robot was originally an Vocaloid, and is one of several V6 voice banks who started off that way. Shiki Rowan, also known as Kemonone Ro, doesn't have very many original songs yet, but I quite enjoyed one called It Just Keeps Going by Kaguo. Now, as a person with ADHD and a serious procrastination problem, I want to go on the record that this song is a personal attack, and I don't know how Kaguo found a way to tap directly into my daily anxieties, but I have contacted my lawyer. In all seriousness, it's a great song, and one that resonates very deeply with the frustrations that I personally have had with myself and where I'm at in life. A key reason that it works so well for me is that it's very fast and busy. I feel like the natural instinct for a song about frustration might be to make it slow or very angry sounding, but this song is like the background music in a cyberpunk-themed course for a racing game, and that makes it perfect for me. Everything happens so much, all the time, and I'm here spinning my wheels because I stalled out again. Rowan also gets an honorable mention for a little song called Happy Sick by Shinamota. The original was an album-exclusive release with Rowan's Utao Bank for a limited CD created for a furry event in 2014. And I can't seem to find the original audio anywhere, just descriptions of it on the Lyrics Wiki and VocaDB. However, Rowan's creator and voice provider, Homorana Yuma, made an updated version when Rowan's Vocaloid voice bank came out. I don't think I need to explain why my usual requirement that a cover version be made by the original creator has been waived for Shinamota, nor why I would like a Shinamota song so much. Wish you could have been here to see it. Moving on, V6 also hosts the popular edgy gothic sibling duo Gekiyaku and Kazuhiki. Both of my picks with them were made with their Vocaloid beta voice banks, but I've never thought there was much difference in quality between those and the full Vocaloid banks. For Gekiyaku, I've got Obsessed by Ali S. The most impressive thing about this song for me is that Ali S makes Gekiyaku sing like she's a worse singer than she is. To be clear, it sounds amazing, but in this case, amazing includes some really wrenching transitions with weird pitch squeaks and breathy spots and plenty of spots where, if this were a human singer, I'd say it sounded like she was straining to hit the note. Gekiyaku comes across like this sort of passionate but untrained singer who's maybe taken on a trickier song than she's comfortable with, but she's determined to give it her all anyway. It's fascinating to listen to. My song for Kazuhiki is, and bear with me here, I'm not super confident about the pronunciation, Mejiku Hibiniu by Ipayon. Ipayon? Ipayon. Ipayon is Indonesian, and the song name refers to a game that they played when they were a kid. Each syllable corresponds to a color of the rainbow. Appropriately then, this song has a delightfully nostalgic sound to it. The instrumental is based around the classics of children's music like glockenspiel and accordion and what sounds to me like a melodica, all nicely balanced with Kazuhiki's gentle voice. The lyrics all amount to, basically, an invitation to be friends, and the whole song matches that vibe. Now, in the last 4 cases, the characters were the same from Utao over to Vocaloid, but there are also a few Vocaloids out there whose voice providers made Utao voice banks with totally different characters before they got tapped for a Vocaloid bank. I already spoke about Dex and Dinah, whose voice providers Aki Glancy and No Straight Answer had the Utaos Namida and Kenji Bainoto. But there's also Ruby, whose voice provider Misha started out with the Utao Makune Hachi. My pick for Ruby is Blossom by the producer duo Myriad, formed by Jouet and Lestriel. The illustration for this video was actually done by Do Not Crosby, though the vibe for the music could not be much more different than Snow Globe City. However, they are similar in that they give the impression of a pretty dense story behind the lyrics, but rather than getting too into the weeds of storytelling, it focuses more on just fleshing out an emotional portrait. Blossom is clearly a song about heartbreak, but lines referencing intense regrets, words spoken in anger, a dramatic final encounter all invite the listener to wonder just what happened between Ruby and whoever it was that she lost. The impression of a bigger story is heightened by the sheer drama of the instrumental. Heavy guitar paired with shamisen and flute samples and all that. Ruby was marketed for her powerful voice, suitable for rock music, but I think a lot of people will agree that as Vocaloid rock singers go, you can't get much better than V-Flower. This might have been the hardest choice for me of the list. There are so many amazing Flower songs out there, but I'm also personally very picky about how I like to hear her tuned. In plenty of cases, I'll find a Flower song that's brilliantly written, but I'll prefer covers over the original because of how the artist made Flower sound. This is decidedly not the case, however, for Villain by Teni Woha. Flower's shouty tone couldn't have been put to better use. Her androgynous qualities complement the queer themes, but they also just sound amazing as she belts and drawls and squeaks on the high notes. The trilled R at the end of the chorus just a cherry on top. And that's not even getting into the music itself. True to its name, Villain sounds like someone reveling in chaos, with those screechy synths bouncing around your headphones against twangy guitars and distorted bass, all driven along by these colossal crashing drums and tom fills. One of these days I'll get around to an episode about the queer anthems of Vocaloid, and Villain is at the top of that list. But today is not that day, so I'll shift now from our beloved Flower to her fellow purple-toned, lower-range singer who isn't nearly as well appreciated, Merly. For Merly, I've got Sorayero Screen by Misatomio. This is another very summery-sounding song, an impression which is only heightened by a music video full of big blue skies and brightly colored illustrations of Merly and the Zola Project boys, who back her up in the chorus. I feel like Merly has the kind of voice that people might instinctively associate with darker, more serious music, but she sounds just as lovely here singing about bright futures and chasing dreams with a little help from your friends. You know how much I love angst and bittersweetness, but we all need a little unambiguous cheer in our lives, and this song has it in spades. Another sorely underrated Vocaloid is Tony Rion, for whom I've picked the song I Don't Need Much by Duck with a Knife, who, let's be honest here, has the best producer name of the whole list. True to the name, I Don't Need Much doesn't overcomplicate things. We open with Rion singing over a simple piano riff, and though more sounds layer in over the course of the song, the melody remains simple. When Rion repeats that she doesn't need much, it is in a way because she already has it. The song is a tribute to the people that Duck cherishes. Every friend who's enriched their life just by standing by their side and laughing at some well-worn inside joke. My favorite song for Ravana follows a similar structure, starting out very sparse and layering in more and more, though the resulting vibe is very different. Hard Disk Hide and Seek by No Straight Answer uses this sort of clicker track as the through line, 4 repeating beats with emphasis on the first, driving the song through its nearly 6-minute runtime. Though I've always thought that Ivana could be one of the most realistic sounding of the English V3s, depending on the tuner, No Straight Answer goes in the opposite direction with layers of filtered, robotic harmonies to better match the themes of the song. There's plenty of storytelling in the songs on my list, because I always love that in my music, but this song has one of my favorite concepts out of all the ones I've listed. The character seen in the video is named Q, C-U-E, and was created and drawn by Chizuru. He's a sentient, harmless computer virus who tries to help out the owner of the computer by organizing some files, only to set off the computer's antivirus software, forcing Q into a high-stakes game of hide-and-seek. The song only implies that Q survives, but it seems to me that Q manages to hold on to the core of who he is and what he loves in spite of what he goes through. I don't have a clever transition for this next song, because this was a lot easier at the beginning of the list when I had more room to rearrange, so we're just gonna move on to my favorite song with the Korean Vocaloid Uni, Sailor by Plum, with lyrics by Word Telomere. Another one where I found no official translation, so I'm going mostly off of vibes, but the vibes could not be better. Notwithstanding the fact that it's in Korean and not Japanese, this uplifting pop rock sound reminds me a lot of some of the better commissioned songs for Leonid and Project Sekai. The video even features an illustration of a sky full of stars in Leonid blue, reflecting down on calm seas with a single sailboat. Special mention also has to be made specifically for the guitar solo, since to me it's what elevates Sailor from just a nice song to something really special. Sticking to the high seas, my choice for everyone's favorite jellyfish girl Lumi is Ghost Ship by Chris. The verses of the song sound urgent, anxious. There's a 4-on-the-floor drum beat driving the song beneath spiraling piano riffs and simple, to-the-point vocal lines from Lumi. She sings of loss and regret, and struggling to accept that it's okay to cry. The lyrics are just as angsty when the chorus hits, but a key change makes a massive change to the tone, hinting at the hope that she's holding on to. The tension and anxiety never fully resolve, but by the end of the song, she's promised that she'll find the voice that she's lost and sing again someday. I'd be remiss not to also mention the gorgeous video artwork done by Chiwakage Hisaka, who's done the art for a lot of Chris's songs. It looks like a gouache painting of a cityscape, with Lumi floating in a cloud-like dress in the sky as if the entire scene is a mile underwater. The lighting shifts at different points in the song, but purple and blue dominate throughout. There's a similar color palette in the video for my pick from Mirai Komachi, Koisuru Firefly by Kenta Arinami. There's not a lot of original music with Komachi out there. Per the Vocaloid wiki, she wasn't even originally supposed to get a commercial release, and was more of an experiment by Bandai Namco Studio. She was also a victim of bad timing, as she was the last V4 release before the big Vocaloid 5 update, and a victim of her own cuteness, I guess. She's generally got a pretty nice voice, but it's not especially unique. I personally think that she sounds a lot like Agamine Rin. Even so, as with many underutilized voice banks, what examples of her voice there are do include some real hidden gems. Koizuru Firefly is a simple piano ballad with some nice drums and strings backing it up. The simplicity allows Komachi to really shine and show off the brightness of her voice. That video that I mentioned is also really lovely. It's an elaborate pixel animation of Komachi, a bright splash of orange in a blue landscape, playing the piano under a huge night sky. A little green-toned ball of light flickers and dances around the piano, presumably the fireflies, before bursting into a shower of stardust. I'll say this for Komachi, I do love her design. The fact that she even has one is kind of a rare thing in the Vocaloid world these days. As I said, she was the last V4, which meant her immediate successors ushered in the era of Yamaha's default voice banks. I've already discussed the V5 defaults and about half the V6s, but there's still plenty of the latter to get through. While the pickings are pretty slim for some of the V6 defaults, the first 4 to be released, Akito, Alan, Sarah, and Haruka, have a pretty solid roster, with songs by some major names. For Akito, I picked Self-Mind Control by EZFG. EZFG is no stranger to faceless Vocaloids, as he's best known for his work with VY1 and VY2, more on them in a minute, and it's never stopped him from writing songs that are full of character. Though Self-Mind Control is a rather alarming title, the lyrics are kind of empowering. It starts out by laying out the idea of someone defined by anxiety and overstimulation, half convinced that they have no agency or ability to change. However, the self-mind control this narrator strives for is an effort to fight those feelings and reassert command over one's own life. He promises in the chorus that we can start walking without getting scared of change, and that it's always possible to challenge your anxieties no matter how many times you have to do it to make it stick. Next, for a complete 180 vibe shift, I've got Eccentric by Mellowcole for Alan. Mellowcole specializes in sleek city pop songs, the kind of stuff I admittedly don't usually go out of my way to listen to, but I'm always happy to have it on in the background, just chillin'. This song also had a version with Miku in it, and she sounds great with Mellowcole's tuning style all the time, but I think the male vocals in Alan's version really elevate the song. He also sounds fantastic on the brief sections of very talky rap vocals. Rap and hip-hop are the genres that Yamaha officially markets Alan for, and though my list is full of examples of Vocaloid singing in styles they're not necessarily made for, sometimes it really does work best just to stick to suggested parameters. Mellowcole isn't reinventing the wheel here, so Alan's free to roll along in a comfortable groove. On to Sarah, we've got Gisei no Wake by Junya Usui. I don't have a whole lot to say about this one, if I'm being honest, I just like the vibe. Poor Sarah didn't have a whole lot of songs that I liked at all, but this one reminds me of a lot of some of the piano rock songs that we saw a lot in the very early days of Vocaloid, albeit with much better mixing and mastering than those tended to have. There's also a nice key change towards the end, accented with some lovely piano flourishes. And to finish off the original V6 quartet, my pick for Haruka is Ashita Ame Demo by Kanepi. I love the guitar tone in this one. It's very tight. Crisply processed, scratchy at times and twangy at others, and often panned way over to one side or pushed to the back of the mix. It's not really the main focus of the instrumental, you can hear electric organs and piano way better, but it's what catches my ear every time I listen to the song. Haruka also gets to shine thanks to very prominent harmonies. Trends come and go in the music world for how subtle or how loud harmonies will be, but I personally prefer the latter, and that's what I got here. My next V6 is Shion, and the song Let's Dance by Skedaddle. Feel a little bad for Shion since this song is almost entirely instrumental and only has her singing a little bit, but there's not a lot of Shion songs out there, period, and I do think this is the best composed of them. It's definitely got a very video game feel to it, or maybe the soundtrack for an action movie with a fight scene taking place in a nightclub. And what lines Shion does sing take advantage of her resonant lower range, so if nothing else, the song suits her. Here's hoping Shion gets a little more love in the future, because she is one of my favorite V6 defaults. On to Asahi, I've got Will I See Her Tomorrow by Creators of Gods. This song makes me wish that I had more than just very basic piano skills, because it sounds like it'd be a lot of fun to play, but there's some little flourishes and trills here and there that'd probably trip me up. It's just Asahi and the piano for most of the song, but in the last chorus, Creators threw in some synths and drums and stuff to kick it up a notch. We also get an appearance from fellow default banks Akito, Sarah, and Taku at this point singing as a chorus, but they're there briefly enough that the song still counts as a solo outing for Asahi. On to Sakura, my favorite for her is Starry Nights, Neon Lights by Ultima. I think V6's cross-language AI stuff can be a little hit or miss, at least compared to Synthesizer V. But when a producer gets it right, the result can be very endearing. Ultima has a long history of coaxing great performances out of even the most awkward voice banks. And seriously, I've only got one song by them on the list, but their discography is massive, and so is their voice bank collection. And the electronic pop sound of this song makes any roboticness to Sakura's voice sound very deliberate, while also highlighting how cute she is. This is also a song that kind of sounds like its subject matter. Like, the lyrics aren't anything groundbreaking, it's a pretty classic little cute love song. But the most notable instrument throughout is this twinkly glockenspiel, which is a perfect match for the lyrical motif of stars and lights. And the last of the V6 defaults I've got today is Jessica. My pick for her is You, Silence by Sota, of Ikanaide fame, and trust me when I say that this song is very much in that happy sad tradition. I've played around with most of the V6 banks at least a little bit, and I've never had much luck with Jessica. If you don't know what you're doing, which I don't yet, she can sound really weird, somehow both congested and flat, but also warbling and unstable in places at the same time. Sota, however, knows exactly what he's doing. You, Silence is a gorgeous pop rock piece with guitars and mixing that wouldn't sound out of place in the lineup of some hot new American indie band. It's the perfect genre for Jessica, and Sota makes every little wobble and breathy hitch of her voice sound like a revelation. Her drawn-out crooning in the chorus weaves perfectly into the tapestry of the mix. Now, the default voice bank thing technically started with V5, but Yamaha had experimented with characterless voice banks before. VY1 and VY2 didn't even get proper names, but they've got some pretty good songs to them. For VY1, my favorite is Midori Yo-Yo by Iroha, with lyrics by Tokiwa N. Kagamine Rin is listed in the title too, but she's only in the harmonies. This is another song that blends traditional Japanese elements with modern pop, including Iroha's signature reverby bass and driving piano that we know so well from Meltdown. VY1 is tuned to perfection here, sounding even more Enka-ish than Sachiko at times, and perfectly matching the ethereal power of the music. The video art is also gorgeous, albeit decidedly not safe for work. There's a lot of fancy accessories and ribbons going on, and not much else. And for VY2, I've got Fools Among the Stars, Hikoboshi by Manbo P. Hikoboshi is the second song in Manbo's Fools Among the Stars or Utsukemono trilogy, a story inspired by the Japanese myth of Orihime and Hikoboshi, two deities separated by the other gods who use a bridge of stars to meet once per year, if the skies are clear enough. I'm simplifying the story a lot, and it's worth checking out all the songs and their summaries on the Vocaloid wiki because the whole thing is just fascinatingly bizarre. But to put the story aside, Hikoboshi is a great song on its own. Mambo P always has cool guitar riffs, and he pairs them here with complex melodies played on what sounds like the same sort of organ that you'd hear at a baseball game. It's a hell of a combo for a hell of a song, and I'm sincerely surprised that we in the Vocaloid fandom don't talk about this series more. VY1 and VY2 are marketed as male and female counterparts, but they're not really a duo per se. I've already talked about most of the paired Vocaloids, but I left one to the end because I was honestly having a lot of trouble finding songs for them. Kotonoha Akane and Aoi have only a handful of songs in total, and that's before you have to discount the duets and the songs made with their voice banks for other engines, of which they have quite a few, almost as many as they do Vocaloid songs in total. Regardless, for Akane I've got Nyanth Time by Pepepe Tauso. This one's a pretty classic Vocaloid hyperpop number, with an upbeat tempo, electronic instruments, and a bright, cheerful performance from Akane. It works for the best that it's taken me so long to finish this list, because the song only came out late in November of 2025. And it seems like it's his first song, too. I'll be keeping an eye out to see if he releases more work with Akane, or if he branches out to other voice banks. And my favorite Aoi song is Tear Day by Cheo. Aoi has the cutesier voice of the two, better suited to high-range melodies, but this song actually makes beautiful use of the very bottom of her vocal range. Tear Day is a piano ballad in the tradition of Kasamura Tota's best work, with a gorgeous build-up from the sparse opening lines to a final chorus bursting with sound, orchestral-style strings, and rumbling electric guitars. Besides the Kotonohas, there are two other V6 banks that I know better from Synth V. Hibiki Koto's number 1 slot goes to Junkie Down by Fushi. If Sailor sounded like a Leonid commission, this one would fit right in with Night Court at 2500's lineup. The synth solo in the bridge has such a cool sound, heavily distorted to the point that it almost sounds like another electric guitar. And the guitars that we have are just as amazing, super tight and crunchy. I also, not to be too blunt about it, just love the fact that Fushi chose Koto to sing it. There are a lot of very similar songs to this out there that generally use Miku, Flower, and or Gumi, but Fushi picked the new girl, and it works really well. Then, we've got Suina-chan and Sui ni Nate by Eo. The electric piano that makes up the core of this song is really cool. It's very Inabakumori-esque, especially once it's joined by the drums, but Eo's also doing something unique with the rhythm that I can't really compare to any producers that I listen to regularly. There's just a whole bunch of spots where the pattern just sort of interrupts itself, almost like a brief intrusion from another genre. It's most noticeable after the first chorus when we get this very jazzy little down-tempo verse. But you hear change-ups an impressive number of times for a song that's not even 3 minutes long. Suina-chan also sounds like Ao was tuning her to appeal to me specifically. At her baseline, she's a little too cutesy for me, but he's lent her just the perfect little hint of calm maturity to balance it out, and I love it. And finally, we head into the last few songs, starting with Iya and Jean's Lost Time Memory. Jean is one of the most talented melody writers to ever grace the Vocaloid scene, and half a dozen songs from the Kagero Project series were in consideration for Iya. But in the end, Lost Time Memory stands above the rest for me. Kagero Project is an incredibly complicated story, arguably to the point of its own detriment at times given the limitations of music videos as a medium. But when it works, it works. Lost Time Memory draws together such a whirlwind of timelines and characters and most importantly emotions, and it arranges them in a way that will feel them the hardest. The protagonist and narrator Shintaro Kisaragi's grief and guilt are inescapable. But even in the sections dedicated to the worst of his depression, the driving feeling of this song for me is urgency. We get to see two ways that the story of Kagero Project might end, but either way we know that things are changing, and they have to change. The summer cannot last forever, and neither can Shintaro's tenuous existence shut up in his bedroom. The same fast-paced intensity is what allows for his brief, bittersweet closure in the final chorus to come across as a triumph, as Iya's high notes take us over the finish line. The hint of the other, darker timeline still lurks in those last fading guitar notes, but to quote another series that combines tragedy and triumph in a knockout 1-2 punch, it's finished. It's done. You can't take loved away. There's a universe out there where I made a podcast about the locked tomb instead of Vocaloid. It might still happen someday, who knows. Now, for the moment a lot of you have probably been waiting for since the first installment, my pick for Hatsune Miku. I said Flower was probably my most difficult choice, and I stand by that, but Miku was a close second. After all, there are literally hundreds of thousands of Miku songs out there to choose from. And of all of them, my favorite is Unhappy Refrain by Wooka. Yeah, Rolling Girl is more iconic, and Unknown Mother Goose is undoubtedly a much more ambitious piece of songwriting, but Unhappy Refrain is the Wowaka tune that gets me every time. Fear and sadness are a through line in all of Wowaka's Vocaloid work to varying degrees, and that's a key part of why they've resonated with so many people. But in Unhappy Refrain, there's also anger. This song is about as subtle as a brick to the face and just as likely to leave your ears ringing, but you feel by the end of it like you could tear the world down with your bare hands. But it's not enough. There's no resolution at the end of the screed, because the anger is also fueled by confusion. Miku sings about how she seemingly has everything, but she's not satisfied. Is this happiness, she asks? Is she really lucky to be where she is? It doesn't feel like it, but if this isn't happiness, then what the hell is she supposed to do now? It's her party, and she'll cry her tears of rage if she wants to. But if this is where you get when you try your hardest and do everything right, how is anyone supposed to get somewhere better? Unhappy Refrain doesn't answer the question, but it lets you share in the catharsis of asking it. And as a final note on Unhappy Refrain, some of the things that made Wooka so pissed off are still all too relevant, albeit in a different form. In the era of generative AI, it's more important than ever to recognize the humanity of the people behind the music we love. Especially since, as Wooka proved, we could lose them before their time. Unhappy Refrain is the best kind of downer, but we're not quite done yet. The last two installments ended with songs about bittersweet goodbyes, so I thought I'd end this one on an unambiguously hopeful note, with my pick for Megare ne Luka, No Logic by Jimmy Thumpy. If It Just Keeps Going made me feel seen for the worst of me, frustration and failures, No Logic embodies every effort I have made to stay hopeful. I've said before that I discovered Vocaloid about halfway through junior high, and I found No Logic a couple years later, which was probably when my tendency to define myself by my academic performance was at its most intense. I hadn't yet hit the wall that was grade 11 math, the first time I ever really struggled in school. So being that nerd with high grades across the board was still my precarious foundation. If asked, I wouldn't have said that I felt like I needed to be perfect, but perfection was nonetheless a very appealing thought. That same time, however, was when I really truly learned how much I needed to be creative. This is when I started writing a lot, and when every page of my school notes had some sort of doodle on them. Even recently, I started working again on a story whose roots go back to ideas that I had when I was 16. I always thought when I was a kid that I'd be some sort of scientist. It'd probably surprise that kid a lot to learn that I work in the arts now. But I've learned to recognize that this is where I need to be, and what I need to be doing. I didn't stay the perfect student forever, and I have learned to be okay with a grade that won't make people go, "Oh wow, you did great." Of course, I'm still learning to be comfortable with that, and doing what I like and not just what I feel like I should, and I probably always will be. No Logic is a good reminder of the lessons that I'm always trying to learn, and a hell of a catchy tune besides. I've been going on and on about the lyrics and the themes, but the guitar solo alone would make the song a contender. The shift from the tight, repetitive verses to the thrumming build-up in the pre-chorus and then into the soaring, hopeful chorus is a truly brilliant listening experience. For a song about embracing imperfection, it's pretty damn perfect to me. And that, finally, is the end of my list. This was a bigger project than I realized when I started out, but I am so glad that I took it on. I'm sure that my favorites are not your favorites, and I'd love to hear about all the ways that you disagree and all the songs that you think are the best in YouTube comments or whatever. But if this list has found you any new favorites, all the better. Either way, thanks for listening through all of this, and I'll have more music to talk about next time. Take care.